Asia Pacific region for the Merit International, and I think Pusa is proud of its alumni who have made this institution proud. And what I personally feel, I've been in the education sector for past 21 years, and what I feel is the most important stakeholder for any academic institution is the alumni of that institution. And Pusa is direction to select that the most outstanding alumni that any institution could appreciate. PIHMAA, which is an old student association of the institution, who come forward and engage with the institution in so many different ways. And I think the most noteworthy contribution that PIHMAA is making to this institution is this Pusa Talk series and similar programs which are there, connecting alumni, outstanding people of the institution with the current students and current faculty of the institution. I think this is a shot in the arm, and the effect of this will be felt for a very, very long time in the field. So, as I told you, morning shows the day, and today, Pusa Talk, since this is the very first interaction that we are having under this series, I'm very, very optimistic, and I'm very, very certain. I have the conviction that this is going to be turning out to be a very noteworthy and a very memorable kind of interaction that we are having, and it will open the door for many more interactions in the future. I am sure that both my colleagues at the institution, the student institution, and our PIHMAA and the alumni, different alumni that we have, we will also look forward to such interactions in the future. So, I would like to first of all invite the president of PIHMAA, Mr. a person who is working in tandem with myself and my colleagues here at the institution, to make a big contribution, because the world in the education government, it is changing very rapidly, and there are more challenges emerging. And this is the time that we have to consolidate our position and make a new vision for this institution for the day. So it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Arindam Kunar, dear friend of mine and the president of PIHMAA, to please come. And I would also request him to please introduce Mr. Menon to the audience today. Mr. Kunar.
Thank you, Mr. PANT. Thank you, PANT. I think from the PIHMAA Executive Committee and all the alumni, first of all, I would like to thank you to be open and welcome the faculty to be able to, the alumni to be able to contribute to the college. I think this handshake and this friendship and this collaboration between the alumni and the college, I think puts this college in a very different state as compared to any other college in the country. And I think I would deeply appreciate you as the leadership of the college and the faculty for making sure that the alumni and the college is connected constantly with each other. I think that's a fantastic approach to ensuring the success of the continued success of the college and its students. What can I say about Mr. Menon? I will say a few anecdotes. First of all, I've worked in this business. In fact, Mr. Menon is my super senior. I joined in '88 and he passed out in '89. So we missed each other, had sort of having a good interaction with each other. But the one thing that, I have learned from him is the speed with which he responds and the kind of timing that he keeps. So he obviously has got certain things fixed in his life, and one of the learnings that we can all take from somebody who has achieved so much in life is probably the discipline of it all. I would like to believe that Mr. Menon also responded fast because he loves the college and wants to do something for the college. So it just fills my heart with pride whenever I see somebody from India and Indian origin doing exceptionally well in the world. And in our small little hospitality world around the country and around the world, Mr. Menon, you are a torchbearer of hope, and you have been able to display with mettle and with hard work, dedication, diligence, you can conquer, shows beyond this country. And I think you are such a source of inspiration for people in this business to be heading such an important and large region of the world's largest hotel company. And, of course, I will read out a little bit of your introduction because that is in order. But I think the entire hotel community in India is in awe and inspiration of what you achieved. So I think the reason that we wanted to start with you is because this is what we want our students to believe in, that this is the opportunity that presents itself to them. We want them to believe that it is possible for somebody who comes from, if you allow me to use the word middle class and humble backgrounds, to achieve what you achieve. And of course, for the faculty to know that, this is the college which has produced talent and like you and who've gone on to achieve so much in life. So I really appreciate it. I know you're an extremely busy person, and to take out an hour and a half for the college is really commendable, and we deeply appreciate. For people, and I'm doing this just because it's my responsibility, but I don't think anybody does not know you or your achievements. But I just like to highlight that while Mr. Menon is the president for Asia Pacific, excluding Greater China, he is also responsible for 450 open hotels and 21 brands with an additional 300 hotels in the current pipeline. Now that's humongous. And when you look at the geographic spread of, all the way from Australia and all the way to India and beyond, and if you look at the kind of timelines that Mr. Menon works, which is why it amazes me for his response and his timeliness that he has done. From 2007 to 2015, Mr. Menon was the Vice President for South Asia, as well as Pakistan, Malaysia, and thereafter he had received, many important and critical assignments. Mr. Menon, as I said, from a professional perspective, is also no stranger to India, and I would hazard to say that his stint in India was probably also an instrumental reason of his current success in the company. I think, the kind of stuff that he achieved while he was in India, starting from the Renaissance and then moving onwards to handling the entire region, and the kind of success that he got in this role was, quite stupendous. Also, I think it would be worthwhile for students and faculty to know that he's worked through the ranks. From a F&B resource in ITC, that time Maurya Sheraton, to working in various hotels in Australia, and then coming back to India to lead the hotel, and then again going back. So he's done his operational stint, and I think one of the reasons that he's also very successful is because he's got his hands dirty and knows the business from the ground up. And me being in a leadership position in a multi-unit company, I realized that that's what is the grounding for success. Mr. Menon is currently based out of Singapore with his family, and he's been recognized and awarded numerous times, starting from the Young General Manager of the Year in 2003 by the Indian Hotel and Restaurant Association, and the GM of the Year by Marriott International, and Hall of Fame Award in 2017 for his contribution to the hotel industry. And I recently noticed a LinkedIn post by Mr. Menon, recognizing 3 general managers in his region for doing outstanding work during these COVID and pandemic times. And so on one side, he has been the recipient of some amazing awards and accolades. He never runs short of recognizing people and talent within the company. So with those words, I would rest the fact that Mr. Menon understands talent. He knows what talent should be doing, and I think nobody better than for him to tell our faculty and the students who are on the call today as to what is the secret of his success and inspire us to follow that path. And of course, on a naughty side, probably at the end we would ask some of the stuff that Mr. Menon did in the college, which he's, shall I say, not so proud of, but still legal to be told in a call like this. So with that, Mr. Menon, I invite you to have a chat with our faculty and some of the students who joined.
Thank you so much, Arindam. You're very, very kind and generous. Sincerely appreciate you taking all the time to constantly follow up. And it's truly a privilege to be part of this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Pant, for inviting me. I have figured that you are a one-year senior of mine. You graduated.
That's right. I graduated in 1988.
Right. So you are definitely, I'm definitely a junior. But it's a real privilege and honor to actually be talking to the school where it all began for me from a hoteliering perspective. And to all the students and the faculty, first the faculty who I'm ever so grateful and thankful for, and the students who are the future hoteliers. My talk today is just going to focus on 3 broad themes. The first theme is follow your passion. The second theme is take risk and think like an entrepreneur. And finally, never lose your thirst for learning, developing yourself and pushing yourself. As I look back at my career, having graduated from Pusa in 89 to today, those are kind of the 3 things that to me have held me together and allowed me to grow in where I am today. So let me just start with Marriott. I am honored to be working for the biggest hotel company in the world. I manage part of the world where we oversee over 400 hotels with another 300 under construction. Some of the most prestigious brands like the Ritz-Carlton, the St. Regis, Bulgari hotels, and also brands like the Marriott, Renaissance, JW Marriott, and Fairfield by Marriott or Courtyard or 4 Points by Sheraton. We are incredibly proud of the brands we have and the growth we have across the world. I am blessed that I have 75,000 associates that work with me every day, we are my part of the world running a $6.5 billion business, which when you put into perspective is about 45,000 crores in Indian rupees. Though unfortunately this year most of it is gone because of COVID. But we are growing at a pace of opening 1 hotel every week in Asia Pacific, excluding China, which is the smallest part of the world. So as I look back at my career, look at the hoteliering aspect, I have to say that as I was growing up, and having studied in a naval public school, can I just request folks to just mute themselves because there's a lot of background noise. Thanks. So growing up in Delhi, in Chanakyapuri, studying at Naval Public School, my first aspiration in life was to become an Air Force pilot. Unfortunately, because of my eyesight that didn't eventuate. I ended up getting an option to join either the Army or the Navy. I sat through, because of my dad's railway background, as a good son, sat through the railway engineering school exams, somehow got through, and was very worried that I would end up in the Indian Railways, where, yeah, I could have been the chairman of the board, but my passion was if I was not flying, then I was going to be a hotelier. I was enamored by the glamour of great hotels, great five-star hotels in those days, and that's the career I chose to pursue. Soon after hotel management, as I became a management trainee, to me, and that was with ITC, that's when I went through what I would call as defining parts of my career. So there were two real defining times in my career that made me, in a big way, who I am today. And the first I'm going to talk about is in the basically late 90s. There was Sea Rock Sheraton, which is a hotel in Mumbai that's been shut now. Ended up in a very serious strike situation. 1,100 employees walked out of the hotel overnight, and we were management trainees for ITC, and we were basically flown in from different parts. There was a total of 45 of us and 55 managers that ran the hotel for a period of 4 months while living in the hotel. We were running about 55 to 60% occupancy. I have to say, in the early days of school or college and then as a management trainee, sometimes you don't want to get dirty, but we had no choice here. We were doing 16 to 18-hour days and doing everything with our own hands. And that to me was the grounding. That was incredibly helpful. And once I became a manager, then I got into food and beverage with a lot of passion around food and beverage, and then had the opportunity in late 1991, very early 92, to move to Australia. And I packed up my bags as a young kid. I was 23 years old and moved to Sydney, not realizing that Australia was going through one of the worst recessions in the last many decades. And in fact, it's the last bad recession Australia has had in the last 30 years. What that meant was that when I showed up and started looking for jobs, there were no jobs. That was the second defining time in my career, because I gave 25 interviews, got rejected of every single one of them, simply for the reason that I had no Aussie experience, that there were no jobs for Australians, so why would any hotel hire a F&B or banquet manager or a restaurant manager straight from India? And at that point, I kind of sat back and said, I have two options. Either I go back home, where I had a cushy job, or I start my career all over again, and I started applying for line-level positions, and which is basically front desk agent and restaurant waiter. Applied at a hotel for a front desk agent. 6 weeks later, number of interviews, actually ended up getting hired as a banquet manager. And that's how I started my career in early 92 in Australia as a banquet manager. And that was a time when when I had moved from India. I was banquet manager at one of the big Sheraton hotels. I had 70 staff working for me as a banquet manager. When I moved to Australia, on my first day at work in Sydney at this hotel, I was the banquet sales manager and I was the banquet operations manager. And I asked the team to introduce me, I asked the HR team to introduce me to the rest of the banquet team. One person showed up, and that was our banquet captain. His name was Jamie, and I said to Jamie, let's go and meet the team. Jamie said, which team? It's you and me. When we need help, we call casuals and other folks. But you're in Australia now, and we do everything ourselves. And that was the difference, that I went from, running a team of 70 to doing everything with my own hands. And lucky for that ITC CROC experience, that held me in good stead. And I continue to say throughout my life that India has taught me genuine hospitality, whereas Australia taught me resource management. And as I started to work through my career, that was the time we had basically in the recession a 300-room hotel being run by 99 staff. Now in those days, Marriott Sheraton, which was I think a 400-room hotel, used to be run by 1,400 staff. So that'll put into perspective of how we can do incredible things in a very difficult environment. As I worked through my career, I had one objective. Like many of us hoteliers, I wanted to get to become a GM by the time I was 30 years old. I got there 15 days late. My birthday is in August, and I became a GM at the end of August 1998. And to me, that was the one aspiration, and till today, I continue to say that was, and the GM job in a hotel, in a large hotel, is still the best job in our business. And as I progressed, when I got to the stage where I started to think which hotel company I wanted to spend the rest of my career with, and after doing a lot of research, I figured that I really wanted to work for some great brands, and I basically narrowed down two hotel companies. One was Marriott International, the other one was Four Seasons, and actively pursued opportunities, built relationships, and then finally got a break to come to India to open the biggest convention center in India back in 2001, which was really the second Marriott property at that point in time. And once I got there in 2001, we opened the hotel on 15th of September 2001. Many of you would remember what happened on September 11th, 2001, which was the New York terror attacks. And here we had a hotel where we had built some good business on the books. We were getting ready to open, and within 3 or 4 days, we lost $1 million worth of business. When we opened the hotel in September, we went through with the opening. We did 18% occupancy. And in October, the next month, we did 9% occupancy. That's when, as a leader of the business, I figured that this is terrible. And as the head of the business, I've got to figure out a way to get us through this crisis. And I've always said, great teams deliver great results. And I was blessed when we sat down together, brainstorming ideas. We literally carved out the hotel into two teams. One team was just focused on bringing in business, and the other team was just focused on managing cost. And on the team that was focused on bringing in business, we had chefs, we had housekeeping associates, we had food and beverage associates, not just sales managers. And, incredibly proud of the team because we had chefs baking incredible muffins and croissants and taking them out, knocking on cold sales calls, basically knocking on offices, saying, we just opened a new hotel. We'd love for you to come and try. And things started to pick up. By November, we did 24% occupancy, and we broke even. And we never had to look back. Today stands as one of the most successful complexes in India, and by the end of next couple of years, they will add another 300 keys on top of the 800 keys that already exist in that complex. So, and that's when you begin to realize the power of the teams. And again, back to my earlier piece about as leaders or as individuals, we have to take risks. And to the students, I will say take risks early on in your career, because that will define you. If you look at any entrepreneur, it's in their DNA to be able to take risks. It's in their DNA to seize opportunities. It's in their DNA to make deals, and the sense of diplomacy. Right? In our business, I continue to say it's not math or science. It is an incredible people-to-people business. And you've got to be able to harness the power of teams. And when you surround yourself with great people and let them run the business, they will deliver great results. And you have to push and set new benchmarks, and 9 times out of 10 people will exceed those benchmarks. So as I have continued my journey, there came a time when I was made the Chief Operating Officer for Asia Pacific, and I started to say to myself, that this is great. I've had a great run. I've grown really well. I've done well in my career, but there's something still missing. I don't believe that, I am a true operator in my heart, but I need to learn more. So that was the time in 2017 I actually sat down with my boss and said, I really want to look at going back to school. And through the conversations, I'm one of the privileged, basically, in Marriott's 93-year history, the third to be sent to Harvard in Boston to do an A&P program where you basically go out of business for 2 months. You live at the business school, and you immerse yourself in advanced management program, which people like Mr. Ratan Tata have done, Y.C. Deveshwar have done in the past. And again, it was an incredible learning experience for me from a couple of perspectives. One was that all I've known my entire life is the world of hotels. This allowed me to get out and work with people who were business leaders from all other walks of life. And second, it allows you to think more strategically and allows you to look inwards and continue to harness your own skills and develop yourself as an individual. And that's why I continue to say, if you're a student or a business leader or a faculty, the thirst to learn, push yourself, and grow should continue, stay with us right through the very end. And again, that course has helped define, as I've got into my current job as president, and we ended up, 4 or 5 months ago, we had an incredible 2019. Marriott is considered the top hotel company. Our results in Asia have been stellar, and then we got hit with COVID-19. And COVID-19, basically, our business just came to a grinding halt. You can imagine running a business of $6.5 billion, about 45,000 crores, as I said. This year, we'd be lucky if we get to, say, 20,000 crores. Slowly opening back up. And it's been a really, really difficult time for the industry and for the company. In 93 years of our history in Marriott or any tourism-related company, Nobody's experienced anything like this. But even during this time, I have to tell you, I am incredibly amazed by the resilience of our team members, our partners that we work with, and our customers. And what we have seen in this time is the level of creativity and innovation that's come through from our teams is truly incredible. As hoteliers, we were not in the business of takeaway. We were not, interested in that side. And now we've got Marriott on wheels. We are delivering food to folks. We are creating packages where you pay today and stay later, helping with cash flow. There are a number of examples of the incredible work the team is doing. And why I say this is, again, back to the point of being an entrepreneur, or, you've got to seize the opportunity. What I learned over the years is you never waste a good crisis. You look at the glass half full, not half empty, and you figure out, unfortunately, none of us wanted to be in this situation, but we are in. So either we can make the most of it, or we can hide and go away and disappear. And we decided in Marriott to make the most of it. And as a result, we are back up, opening hotels. We are working with our customers, our partners, to move things along. And even in this real tough year, we're going to continue to open one hotel every week for the rest of the year across Asia Pacific, across the 22, 23 countries that are overseas. So, as I said, it's been an incredible journey. I'm extremely proud of the grounding I got at Pusa, thanks to the great faculty that existed there, and obviously Mr. Sudhir Andrews was the principal at that point in time. But my learnings have always been that you have to follow your passion. I could have easily gone into railways and become an engineer, but I know that's not where my heart would have been, and I probably would have not, really done any better than an average manager. The ability to take risks early on, being thrown in the deep end of the pool, even during the strike situation in Sheraton, in Mumbai. Some of our colleagues just couldn't cope with it. They went back home. But the ability for all of us to kind of swim through, learn, and continue to grow just makes us who we are. And particularly, I continue to say, being a middle class from an Indian family where parents had moved from Pakistan, had lost all their wealth, started all over again. I saw the hard work my parents did. Both dad worked in railways, mom worked in telecommunications, and they taught us some great lessons. And as I moved to Australia, when you talk to some of the great leaders, Indian origin leaders like Indra Nooyi, who's Pepsi chairwoman, CEO and chairwoman for PepsiCo, one of the top CEOs in US. There is something called a migrant mentality, which means that you know that to thrive, you have to be better than everybody else. You have to work hard, but you have to take risks and drive incredible results. And that hunger to continue to push yourself is critical for all of us. So I encourage all of you to continue to follow your passion. Please take risks, think like an entrepreneur, and never lose the thirst to learn and grow. Because these three have helped me incredibly well over many years, and I hope we continue to do so as I move forward. Thank you. With that, I'm going to open it up.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Landon. Very well articulated piece it was, And what an incredible story it is, I think. It is inspiring to so many people. There are a few students already attending, and I'm sure we will be making a replay of this talk of yours. We will play it over and over again, and it will inspire a large number of students in the days to come. Well, I would like to start the second part of the session, and if I have that privilege, I would like to throw a few ideas to you to reply on them. One thing I always wondered, what is the contribution that an academic institution makes in the character building or in building the metal or the attitude of a person? So that is one question. And the second question is that we are going to approach a milestone for the institution. We will be completing 60 years of our existence in 2022. So what is the kind of program or how should it be celebrated? And third, the last thing and the most important thing is that there is so much of churning happening in the education and hospitality education as well. There are new entrants coming and their offering is way different from what the traditional offering in an institution like the IHM has been. Now, where do you see an institution like IHM Pusa in the next one decade, and how it should, transform itself or to cultivate itself to remain at the top, if I may say so. And then after that, I would request, my colleagues to come and ask you a question, one by one. Right? Thank you.
Sure. So let me start with the college first and foremost. I think college years are formative years in any individual's growth. To me, where generally the hotel schools do a job at setting your base up on basics of hospitality. Although today the world has evolved and changed dramatically. I like to see, hotel schools creating entrepreneurs. And even in some of the top schools, say in Singapore, kids in schools are being taught entrepreneurial skills. And why can't that be done at the hotel schools? When you look at the world today, things like revenue management, a number of other disciplines are becoming very relevant to the way we do business. And often when we take students from hotel schools, we've almost got to then give them considerable training to build them up to today's hotel standards. And as a result, what I would propose is at some point in time, think tank, a steering committee, working with Arindam and rest of his executive team to figure out ways by which we can influence the government to agree on changing the syllabus to include some of the things that are very relevant for today's hotel industry employees. And unless we do that, I just think that evolution needs to continue. Because if that evolution doesn't continue, then, the others will take over because, they've got a lot more funding, they've got a lot more entrepreneurial ability to continue to push along, and it'll become harder and harder. So my recommendation would be just to figure out a think tank, a steering committee that can work together in seeing what is being taught today, which again, I apologize, I'm not that in touch, and how do we need to shift gears? Things like revenue management being a key focus, entrepreneur skills, finishing schools, those kind of things are to me important, other than the good ground that is covered in day-to-day hospitality at the hotel schools already. In terms of the celebration, Well, it's a great milestone, and anything we can do to help will only be a pleasure. And again, I know you're in good hands with Arindam and the rest of his colleagues, so we can definitely put our minds together and figure out, some ideas that we can share together. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. Thank you so much. And like I would like to share with you that in your time, in my time, it was only diploma in hotel management which was there on offer. But now we have a master's program also. The institution also offers MSc degree, and revenue management and facilities management and their operations, designing, all these aspects have been taken care of. And there already is a steering committee. Maybe it has to be made more secular and more broad-based, and we are working towards that. Our MSc degree, on the lines of MBA, they offer specialization in marketing and in human resources. We have proposed that let the specialization be there in the area of revenue management and in menu engineering, menu merchandising, and those kind of disciplines, rather than being in competition with the MBA school. So there is some work already going on in that area, and hopefully we'll share it with you when some breakthrough is achieved in those areas. Now, I would like to request my colleagues to pose their questions to Mr. Menon, and for the benefit of one and all. So we may start with Dr. Gupta, then Meenakshi ma'am, and that role we can take in asking our questions, please. Dr. Gupta?
Yes. Hello, Mr. Menon.
Hello, Dr. Gupta.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you for such a inspiring and motivating interaction with us, especially for the students. And as you have wide exposure across the globe, and did you observe any gap between the hospitality education methodology in India and at international level? If so, can you suggest some of the measures to incorporate that item Pusa to bridge that gap?
So again, Dr. Gupta, I have to apologize that I am not that au fait with the current Indian hospitality education scene.
Yes.
But I will say what we do see with, hotel schools in Switzerland and others, that there is much stronger focus on broad growth for students, plus also students are sent in many cases for 6 months to 9 months at a time to work in the industry, to find placements, to work in the industry, and syllabus is built around the industry. Whereas what I generally found, that we used to do our internship for 2 months or 3 months in our days. I would say if, education syllabus is built around the industry and there's a lot more interaction for the students to be able to go in and out of hotels, experience what's going on, in different disciplines within hotels. And it's not just going to be intern at a banquet, in a large hotel, but I'm talking about going and being in sales and marketing, going and being in human resources, going and spending time in other disciplines. That would go a long way in developing the students from a long-term perspective. So to me, that's the crux in terms of the gap that probably exists today. And then when you look at, the sponsor already addressed it, but it's not just the business of day-to-day running the hotels. It is about how do you develop hotels? What does design look like? There is so much work that happens on that end, and I genuinely see opportunities there as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good morning, sir. Meenakshi.
Good morning, Meenakshi.
Sir, I have a question. That is, in the present scenario, that is the COVID era that we are having right now, what is the bigger challenge? Is it managing the finances or managing the people?
It's actually both. I continue to say, if you're blessed with a great team around you, things do fall in place. But managing finance is critical because, in the current environment we are in, we've gone from basically revenue drops of close to 85 to 90%, right? When you have hotels shut and you have hundreds of employees on payroll and you've got to be paying out considerable amount of money on a monthly basis, it becomes very difficult. So you have to be creative. Luckily for us, we do have many such channels. One is, for example, in all our hotels, we put aside money for operating hotels. We call it FF&E fund. On a monthly basis, we put that money aside, and that money sits in a separate bank account. And unfortunately, we're having to use that money to help with the cash flow situation. I talked about earlier coming up with creative ideas of Marriott on Wheels, or pay now, stay later kind of campaign. But please remember, at the end of the day, it's got to be the people that will run the business, right? So you've got to have incredible talent around you. And you've got to make sure that people understand. So, at a time like this, one has to over-communicate. We've spent a lot of time training our associates on resilience, on how to adapt to adversity, how to think outside the box, and, hence you see such examples. So there's a lot of focus on training, a lot of focus on, seeing how we can help people, even people that are losing jobs. I can assure you, which is the last thing we want to do in this time. What we are doing as a company is we have partnered with a number of international companies like Amazon, Visa, Dell, who are our global partners. And I know for sure Amazon is hiring 20,000 people in India, and they are giving Marriott associates priority if we are forced to let people go. But we maintain alumni database, and then our aim is as soon as business starts to come back, we bring those people back. So, it's creating that family that unfortunately, if it becomes really difficult, you can't hold on to them, and then you let them go to somebody else, but keep that relationship and then bring them back when business times is done. But it's a really tough time for the industry. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your enlightening words.
No, pleasure.
Good morning, sir. This is Nimisha.
Hi, Nimisha.
Personal touch and greet with a smile are the base of the service industry as we all have seen it. In the post-COVID era, what can be the best possible ways to handle the situation now?
So, Nimisha, it's a very valid question. I would say that the personal touch and the smile will never go away. But what's going to happen, and what is happening today, is we are all trying to create contactless experiences for our guests. So let me give you an example. Even before COVID-19, Marriott has the largest loyalty program in the world called Marriott Bonvoy. We have 140 million members around the world. We have the Bonvoy app, and using the Bonvoy app, our customers could check into the hotel, basically make their reservation, check into the hotel, get into their hotel room using the app, on the phone, access the room, not even go anywhere near front desk, get into the room, order room service, and they could check out. It was totally contactless. Okay. We are continuing to build on that today. If you walk into many of our restaurants, as you've probably seen in India as well, you just use your phone, download the app, you got the menu, and you go ahead. But the one thing I continue to point out to our teams is that doesn't take away from a restaurant serving incredibly good food and great service, right? Those are core to who we are and how we attract people. My belief now, having been in this crisis for a while, reading a lot, listening to a lot of people, is that travel, bits and pieces of travel will come back. Full recovery is at least 2 to 3 years away. But confidence in travel will only come back when we have a treatment or a vaccine on the shelf. And till that happens, we've got to create an incredibly safe and clean environment for our customers. But at the same time, you've got to give them the option of using those contactless experiences if they choose to. And if they want a personal experience, the smile is always there, in the background. My view is you can never and should never take that away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Menon.
Are there any student questions? Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Menon. This is Anand.
Kritika Kapoor, you can come over and please ask the question. Please open up your mic. So, yes, sir, we can have your question later. Please kindly wait. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you for this opportunity, ma'am. Good morning, sir. It's been a pleasure to attend this. I was wondering, from a recruiter's perspective, what are some skills that a prospective candidate is expected to have mastered or honed in this period of lockdown?
So the one thing I'm going to say to you that I talked about is please continue the journey of learning even though you've got lockdown. Right? We have, as a company, spent more time, resources, and money training our associates during lockdown than any other time, purely because we believe that was the best way to keep our associates engaged. So if you are continuing to build on that learning, that will definitely help. I do believe that this year, recruitment environment across all tourism sector is going to be particularly tough, but that doesn't mean the end of the road, right? If you have genuine passion for the business, please continue to follow that passion. Doors will open. I have always been a believer that if one door shuts, 4 others open, and you've just got to continue to pursue that passion of yours. But please keep in mind, never stop learning, and also focus on where are the needs in the industry. And by that, I mean look around the hotels in your market, where you see most opportunities being put out there in terms of recruitment, and then sometimes you got to take a side step to get in and grow over a long period of time. I take example of a colleague of mine who's my batchmate, when I joined ITC as a management trainee in front of the house, he joined in the kitchen stewarding. But today, he heads HR and owns one of the biggest companies, in Dubai in terms of catering companies. So it's not about where you start, but it's where you want to end up. And you got to make sure that this piece about getting your hand dirty, you keep that in the back of your mind. If you're willing to do that in our industry, you think like an entrepreneur, you're willing to take risks, you will never go wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next, I would like Mohammed Said.
Good morning, sir. This is Mohammed Said. First of all, it's an honor to talk to you, sir, and thank you for my faculty for giving me this opportunity. Sir, my question is, in this current scenario, so that we can, when we hope that we get jobs after post-pandemic situation, and what is the scope as a fresher, sir? Because we see the new of job losing in the hotel industry. So how can we keep us motivated and we scope of a fresher after post-pandemic situation, sir? Please enlighten us, sir, in this question.
So there is no denying that it's a very, very difficult time for people. I will tell you this from personal experience. Being a leader of a team of 75,000 associates that work across 22 countries, when we were all put in lockdown, and Singapore has had a lockdown as much as India did, it was very frustrating to me as a leader because I couldn't get out, I couldn't interact with the team, and we were all in lockdown. But I learned and figured out very quickly that I had to maintain discipline in my have a routine, which meant that the stuff that I was doing day to day when I was doing my job as normal, I had to bring it back even in lockdown, which meant exercising, meant making sure that I was spending the time with the team, being on video calls, or phone calls, and just following the routine and focusing on what the key priorities are. And what I would say to you is, during lockdown, it is even more important to keep that discipline, make sure you are staying fit, because I'll tell you, a successful entrepreneur in our business needs to be on the go a lot. You are continuing to learn and grow yourself, because when market does open up, and please keep in mind, market will open up, right? This world has gone through many, many recessions. So this is not the end of the road. It's matter of time. 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, even if it's 6 months. Guys, all of you, you have your entire life in front of you. So I wouldn't get worried about 6 months. But if you stay focused on continuing to be disciplined, continuing that learning journey, as the market open up, you will see opportunities come up, and then you get yourself in and continue to build your career. That's how things will play out. Otherwise, you'll have to look at other industries which are today continuing to hire. Now, what I do know for sure over many, many years, that hotel management students are not only loved by the hotel industry, there is also a whole different set of industries that love hiring from hotel schools. So in terms of job opportunities, I'm a believer that if it's not in hotels, there will be opportunities that exist, as I talked about, with Amazon, with other back office companies and a number of other IT companies. But if you're truly passionate about hotels, then, this thing will go away and there will be opportunity in hotels. But don't sit idle till then. Thank you.
Before we go to the next question, can we just ask Mr. Menon how much time we have?
I'm okay with 15 more minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Guru.
Thanks so much.
Mr. Goel, you want to go ahead with your question?
Yes, sir. Mr. Menon, good morning.
Good morning.
So, what is the effect of COVID-19 on the recruitment at your own hotel, sir?
So, to be perfectly honest, it has a considerable impact. And the first and foremost thing we are doing is that, we are looking after the internal family, which means that as we look at opening hotels, so for example, we're going to open 7 hotels in India for the rest of the year and into the first quarter. We are only going to be taking people who currently work for the company, and we are moving them out of one hotel into a new hotel because we are trying to manage our way through this crisis. But as I said earlier, Mr. Goel, that doesn't mean that the world will come to an end, right? There will be a ton of opportunities that will open up. It's a matter of time. Students need to continue to keep themselves being relevant, and the opportunities will return. But the next few months are definitely going to be difficult. I don't want to sugarcoat it because we are going through the single worst crisis in the tourism industry of our lifetime.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your honest answer. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask. I would like to ask, what is the best possible way to handle expectations versus reality in the current scenario? Please enlighten on this. Thank you.
So, the way I see it is, for any individual and as leaders, you've got to understand the challenge that you have in front of you, and then figure out where you want to go. In the world of Marriott, me myself as an individual, at any given time, expectations are high, but the reality is the reality, right? So what I have always done is focused on where I want to go, but how am I going to get there by taking baby steps? And those baby steps have been critical in getting to meeting the expectations that we want to achieve eventually. Again, expectation today, everybody wants a job, and everybody wants customers in the hotel, but that's not the reality, right? Many of the hotels are being shut. So you have to come to terms with reality, because if you don't, then you will get lost. And unfortunately, the world is pretty unkind from that perspective. So you have to live in the real world and react to the current environment, but don't stop dreaming. That, to me, is critical. Have the aspiration and look at the glass half full. There are so many people in today's COVID environment that are looking at the glass half empty. And to me, that is a lost cause. When you start looking at the glass half full, you will look at seizing every opportunity that exists. I can tell you over the last many months, I've been working with many governments, many ministers, in terms of figuring out how do we reactivate travel. And only last night, I was part of a World Economic Forum discussion on South Asia with some ministers from different countries, and we were talking about, you know, ways to stimulate demand and get things moving in India. Because while we are in the reality of today where hotels are shut or running 5, 6, 8% occupancy, we want to get to a place where we are back on making money 30, 50, 60, 70% occupancy. And as leaders, we have to continue to push ourselves along, and all the competitors. So I think as an alumni, we've got to figure out those ways to help make that contribution. The second to me is just, continue doing what you have been incredibly pushy and kind of, consistent with your follow-up with people like me who get lost in our own world and focus on, what we have to do every day, just bringing them back. There are incredibly more talented people than me out there who can come back and continue to talk to the students and the faculty to just continue that dialogue, right? Because to me, what is very important is that college lives in the reality of what hotel business is about, right? If we can continue to bridge that gap and set the expectations right, then students will kind of come out of the college, knowing what they want, where do they want to get to, versus kind of believing they'll walk out within a year, become general managers, which happens many a time. And then finally, to me, when you look at any major educational institution like, Harvard or any of the others, there is this piece about think tank. There's this piece about, what do you do beyond education, the social aspect, right? And how do we work around that? How do we build a community which is socially energized by some of the great work Pusa and the alumni or the college is doing? Because there is the economic angle, but there is also an important social angle which one needs to address at the same time. So those would be the three things that I would personally focus on.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. There are two questions from the student. So if you permit, sir.
Sure, go for it.
Thank you, sir. So I would like Pramod Beth to open up his mic and ask the question, please. Thank you. So Pramod Beth. Yeah. Please ask Pramod.
Certainly, ma'am. So my question to you is, what are some key steps that are taken by the Marriott International Organization for the financial students in the COVID-19 era?
Can you be loud, Pramod?
Certainly, ma'am. Am I audible?
You are, Pramod. I heard your question. Let me try and answer it for you.
Thank you.
So, financial steps, there are a number of different steps, and some of them I talked about already. For any business to survive today or at any given time, you got to make sure that you have decent cash flow. We reached a point where we were doing exceptionally well, but from one day to the next, we had almost zero revenue, but the cost base was big. So you have to figure out, how do you manage your cash flow? How do you manage to make sure that you are meeting your expenses? Can you work with your partners? Is there creative ways? I talked about a couple of different things that we've been doing as a company, where every month we put money aside in our hotels for future refurbishments, as one would call it. We call it FF&E money, and that's typically 3, 4, 5% of revenue every single month is put aside in a separate bank account, which is then used when we do major refurbishments in restaurants, bars, or guest rooms. Now, at this time, when hotel revenues come to a grinding halt, we need cash. We've been dipping into that fund to help manage our cash flow. And when business comes back, we will replenish it. And then other things that we've been doing. You have to be focused on how do you generate revenue. And my view in life has always been that revenue is the answer for most evils. By that I mean, in the business, if your revenue is growing at a good pace, you are just in a good, healthy space. So Marriott on Wheels concept that I talked about it's been important for us to get our teams out there, deliver incredible food and beverage to our customers that want to experience Marriott but can't leave their homes. So we are taking the restaurants and the bars to them at their house. And then finally, other parts of creativity is around where you sell packages to customers, and we've collected millions of dollars, which are helping us with cash flow today. So those are some of the things we are doing at hotel level. When we talk about corporate level, because as a company globally, being a $70-odd billion turnover company, again, revenues globally have dropped by 80 to 85%. We've seen that just on a month-on-month basis, Marriott can sometimes burn through $100 to $150 million worth of cash. And we've been able to restructure our loans, do bond offerings, and other things that have really helped us set ourselves well for the next at least 2 years if this crisis continues. You have to be very creative during this period, but make sure that you've got good balance sheet at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, students, because of the positivity of the time. Now, the last question, I would request Mr. Vineet Shimmer to ask a question, please. Thank you. Mr. Vineet, if you can open up your mic. Thank you.
This is going to be interesting. We would like to get some interesting stuff from what we call as the locker room stuff.
Yes, sir, we would like to hear.
I'm not sure if I can say much because some of those activities are not even permitted today. So, but one thing I will say is that I was terrible at French. Mr. Bhattacharya was incredibly kind to me. And as being young kids and all throughout, even today, one of the principles I've lived with is you work hard and you play hard, which basically means that, sometimes you end up burning candles on both sides. But I did have a great time in college. There were things that we did which, were questionable. And I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to be talking about it before I get reprimanded, but I think the one message I'll leave all of you is please, you've got to work hard, you've got to play hard, because college is such a great time for not only learning, but just building your character, your personality as an individual, building those friendships that stay with you forever. And ever, and then you have things that you're not good at. And I was terrible at French, but somehow got my way through. I'm going to leave it there. And when we meet in person, we can talk a little bit more.
Yes, indeed, we will, sir. So I guess that's last question before I hand over to Mr. Pant from PIHMAA. Mr. Really, a very deep and heartfelt, very well meant thank you It means a lot to all of us that you could spare some time. And I would just say that we are extremely proud of you and what you've achieved, and the kind of faith and if I use the word glamour that we bring to our college, and of course to our country. So thank you very much for spending this time. I know it's very, very tough to take out time, especially during this period, but to have a manifestation of your love for the college. Deeply appreciate.
Thank you so very much, and look forward to seeing all of you around in person.
Mr. Pant, is there anything you would like to share? Mr. Pant around? Yeah.
So we are just checking, even we can see sir.
Oh, he's there, I think.
Yes sir, he's there. He's there sir. Answer?
Anyway, so Mr. Menon, thank you once again. Deeply appreciate it, and we shall catch up with you soon. I'd like to thank all the participants. I noticed that at the peak we had about 80 odd participants today. So obviously we had a good mix of faculty and students. A big round of applause and gratitude to the faculty for continuing to do what they do and creating the kind of students that we are now having the opportunity to welcome and hear a perspective of story. So thank you very much.
Honor to important